Welcome back, virtual circuit riders. We will follow the story, the Wesleyan movement now, from Great Britain, and in particular the island of Ireland, the Emerald Isle, to the American shores in the first great missionary outreach of Methodism. There has been a good deal of good-natured rivalry concerning where Methodism arose first in America, and we will touch upon that shortly. But there's really no doubt where Methodism arose as a source in Great Britain, and that is on the island of Ireland, the great Irish love of preaching and narrative. John Wesley found great success in Catholic Ireland with his Protestant renewal movement, particularly in County Limerick, which you see here from the book. You can see the county, southwestern portion of Ireland. And a number of important converts were made by John Wesley, both in County Limerick and also in the north central area, the Drumsna, the Terryhoogan area. The two great lay immigrant preachers of America are converted and become class leaders. In the case of Philip Embry, and a circuit rider, or a circuit preacher, as it were, with Robert Strawbridge in the Drumsna, Terryhoogan area. The group of Irish settlers who were most attracted to Wesley's message already had a Protestant background from the continent. The generation before Philip Embry, pictured here, and Robert Strawbridge, pictured here, they'd been born in Ireland, but their parents had immigrated from the continent as Protestants under some oppression in the Palatinate area, the western portion of the Rhineland area. So these Palatines had settled in Ireland for a generation, but saw that prospects looked better in America. So by 1760, these Palatines, who had already converted to Methodism, particularly in this County Limerick area, Philip Embry and a group of other Irish immigrants, Philip and Margaret Embry, his wife, John, David, and Peter Embry, and their cousins Barbara Heck, all were important immigrants to America who go to New York City around 1760, August of 1760. And these Irish, along with Robert Strawbridge, who settles in the area northwest of Baltimore, Maryland, Carroll County, Maryland, in the Sam's Creek area. It was Frederick County at the time, but it's been divided off into Frederick and Carroll County. So in this watershed area of Sam's Creek and Little Pipe Creek, Robert Strawbridge begins preaching in the early 1760s as well. These are lay persons who come to America. They're not sent by John Wesley or the conference. They're simply coming to America to seek a better life and begin to spread Methodist preaching and ideas along with that. Philip Embry and his company, including his cousin Barbara Heck, immigrate from County Limerick. I suppose it's interesting to show in the Rathkeel area this castle, which is Castle Matrix. You can see variation of that name here on the well here. This castle provided the society that Philip Embry presided over as a class leader and deepened his Methodist roots. Still standing in the Rathkeel area of County Limerick. So the Embreys, the Hecks, and the other Palatinates leave the area here and immigrate to the New York area. Robert Strawbridge going to Maryland, and so we will pick up the story. The story has been argued over endlessly, which is first, the Immigrant Methodist Society at John Street, UMC in New York City, or the work of Robert Strawbridge down here in Maryland. The first disciplines put out by the Methodist Episcopal Church, 1780s, 1790s, very diplomatically said about the same time the work of Strawbridge and the work of Embrey and Company began in New York. Back around the turn of the 20th century, the northern and southern branches of the Methodist Church launched commissions to discern from the record whether the northern John Street Church was the first or Strawbridge's work down in Maryland was the first. Surprise, surprise, the Northern Church, the MEC, the North, came out on the side of New York being first, and the Southerners, the MEC South, saw Strawbridge's work as being first. It's difficult to tell from the sources because Robert Strawbridge did not leave a diary. Converted under Wesley in Ireland, Strawbridge probably begins the first permanent class meeting sometime between 1762 and 1766 in the Sam's Creek, Maryland area, which we showed you last in this area here. Now, it's quite clear that Robert Strawbridge, along with his wife Elizabeth, really are the first circuit riders and first, in the case of Robert Strawbridge, the first full-time traveling preachers in America. You can see he also founded probably the first log chapel preaching houses. This one here, the Sam's Creek log chapel, sometime between 1764 and 1766, down here in the map. Other preaching chapels that emerged from his work, the Polson's Chapel here, a little to the east of Sam's Creek, off Little Pipe Creek, and then the Stone Chapel of 1800. Stone Chapel being quite early in 1800. Usually the log chapels were the mainstay of the Methodist Episcopal Church, probably up until the 1820s and so forth. But Strawbridge organizes the first American Methodist societies around 1763 or 1764. Those dates aren't hard and fast, and they're not that important. But his wife, Elizabeth, creates one of the first, is responsible for one of the first converts in American Methodism, a man named John Evans. John Evans. This is the John Evans house. Elizabeth strikes the first blow for conversion in America, and Evans leads a class, a small group in this home, while Strawbridge is the traveling itinerant. Elizabeth Strawbridge stays home and farms, and other neighbors help her farm, creating the first full-time traveling possibility for Strawbridge. Class meets in this house from either 1764 or 1766, depending on when the class was founded there, until 1809, and many early generations of preachers preached there, including Francis Asbury. Strawbridge's work included most of the Maryland area, and he also itinerated, well, the eastern Maryland area, and also itinerated down into Virginia and up into Pennsylvania as well. His work was successful. He converted probably more persons than any other of the preachers in his period. You can see here the Maryland circuit in the 1770s, the Baltimore circuit. These were all centers of gravity for Methodism in America. We have the first statistical records from 1773, and the Maryland area is almost half of all Methodists in America, and we'll look at those stats a little bit later. He was a preacher who believed that he was called to celebrate the sacraments, practice Eucharist in an irregular and according to Wesley and his duly sent preachers of later times, an irregular and illegal, theologically irresponsible celebration of Eucharist, as well as baptism of converts. But Strawbridge was the first to convert a whole generation of native-born American Methodists who go on to become preachers, and by his death, as it says here in 1781, most of Maryland had Methodist circuits. Robert Strawbridge will give rise to a sacramental controversy throughout his ministry, but because he was so successful with his conversion of so many persons in the Maryland area, Methodism turned a blind eye and sort of winked and nodded at his eccentric and irregular celebration of the sacraments, proving once again that effective preachers find more latitude within the itinerant system from bishops and superintendents. They're able to circumvent some of the usual disciplinary requirements. We can see from the Google Earth material here, if we go down into Maryland, we have the Robert Strawbridge home, which is a United Methodist Heritage Landmark. It includes the house of Robert Strawbridge and Elizabeth, and the preaching that he did in his own log cabin home, as well as a reconstruction of one of the early log chapels that he preached in is also on the site, and we can go down and look at this here. It's a whole site here, including. The Strawbridge Shrine is an important museum and monument to early American Methodism. And if you go on to the General Commission of Archives and History website, which I've included here as a link, you will find information about Strawbridge as it is served by our official agency devoted to history. And most of the historic sites and shrine heritage landmarks are included in my Google Earth material from my book, and you'll have links, online links as well. You can get directions to the Strawbridge house, and there's even a really neat web page here that has pictures and gives you information that you can download. Number of photos, biography of Robert Strawbridge. They've marked out the site of the original log meeting house,